Well, good morning, everybody. It's really great to be here this morning. I just decided yesterday, on the spur of the moment, that I would like to pass some information on to you. I hope it's helpful to you. It's not a major announcement, but it's major information that can help you. But it's mostly based upon products, so I don't want you to get too carried away with the features, but the benefits are what people are really looking for. You can talk about, but the features need to be there to support the benefits, if you understand that. Now, we're in a difficult situation when you're into nutraceuticals or to dietary supplements, if you will, because big pharma is a massive monster out there, and it's out to crush any competition that's there. And yet, DSHEA, the Dietary Supplemental Health Education Act, was created, that law, in 1994, and Senator Orrin Hatch from Utah is one of them that did that, because Utah was so big in dietary supplement manufacturers, which it still is today. And in that, at that time, and there are people that are distributors in our company that weren't around at that time. Isn't that amazing? But at that time, there was a huge effort going on to regulate all dietary supplements, minerals, vitamins, everything as prescription drugs. And so they could only be sold out of a drugstore or a pharmacy or prescribed with that. And there was such a massive outcry. It's the greatest reaction Congress has ever had to anything they've ever been going to do. And this outcry from the public was just ferocious. And so this law got passed to try and thwart what big medicine and big pharma is trying to do with it. And so it gives us something to work with legally, because up to that time, anything you said could be said to be a drug claim. And of course, who wants to come after you with a drug claim? Well, the FDA does, the FTC does. And true, if they're in violations of law and if there's things that are harmful, I can understand that. But most of this is just economics that they're doing at the bidding of big pharma, who is the major contributor to them. And if you'll notice, one thing, people that want regulations and control, they want to control virtually everything. And we have a very difficult thing happening now within our society, which I think there's also a big upswell to overcome, and that is this socialism that's starting to permeate or bring its ugly head to the surface. And socialism is so repressive to everybody involved. So for the people, you look at any socialist country, people at the top make a tremendous amount of money, and the middle class is pretty well decimated, and they have this sort of a two-tiered, it's a medieval structure. Like when they had kings and dukes and earls and things like that, and the rest of us were peasants and some business people. But that has evolved away with democracy and capitalism and free enterprise and all of those types of things. But the people that want to control us, they need to control that, because if we have the resources and the time and the freedom, then we can do what we want, and it doesn't enrich them necessarily unless they're on the same train that we're going on. And so that's one of the missions of Sisel, is to provide you a way that you can take your life wherever it's at, and you can become healthier to start with. That's number one. Wealthier, that's very important too, and happier in the process of doing all of that. And granted, money doesn't bring happiness, but the lack of it creates a lot of unhappiness. So think of it that way. If somebody can, oh yeah, money, I have a brother that's especially that way, been just, it's their compensation for not wanting to do it or take it. But he used to always say about my dad and myself that we were money hungry. And money is a very valuable thing. There's so much good that you can do with it, but we're enterprising is what we were, but people use that kind of a cop-out against you. Oh yeah, this is another one of those pyramid schemes, and you hear all that stuff, and all that's really telling you, it's an indictment of the person telling you that and what their mental attitude is. So it's kind of like if you go back to Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Well, it's the same thing with what we're doing. If we can get people to take a look at this for a number of reasons, for those that need economic freedom, here's an avenue to do it. However, you're only dealing with about a fourth of the population. Still, that's a big number in whatever country you're in that is enterprising. But out of that 25% of the population, dang near about half of them won't really. They want to, but they won't really do what needs to be done so they can have what other people don't. So it's a grand scheme that we have here in Sisel to put all these things together, whether it be for if you need economic help, if you want that, of course. Then we have that here, and it's something for everyone. We have people that are paying for their own products because of the commission they have. We have some people that are putting $500 extra in their check every month or in their income, and $500 is actually what these economists say is a life-changing amount for the average person. Because with $500, it'd pay half a house payment, it would pay easily pay a car payment and all the expenses involved with it every month. So those are life-changing figures. So if you do things incrementally, sometimes everyone wants to become a millionaire, right? But takes a lot to do that. So with that, you got to have a track to run on. And people say you don't know what's there until you grow high enough sometimes to be able to see it. And I tell people it's like being in a steep canyon down in the bottom. If you're in the bottom of a very steep canyon, you haven't got much of a view. You can kind of look up and see things up to a certain point. But climb to that top of the mountain, and the higher you get up, the greater your view is, the more you can see. And it's the same thing with this business. So if you think upon it that way with someone, that you're helping them to climb the mountain and to understand from where they're at, no matter where it is, they can't see from the top yet, but they can see more as they get there. And the more they see, the more enthusiastic they will get. So work with them incrementally. It doesn't go from 0 to 100 in 3 or 4 seconds. It's not that kind of thing like in racing. This is one that is a steady climb. And if you do it, pretty soon it becomes so abundant that you're having things happen. You have opportunities there that you were never able to realize in your lives before. And there are many people out there. I think we're probably going to create, I don't know, I bet we go over 100,000 millionaires. It's very possible to do that. That's a lot. I created 1,000 with my previous company, we estimated. And I say I meant the company and everybody else that was in it. It wasn't, I was just providing the track for them to run on the products and things like that. But we had one person a woman from Russia making $60 a month when she started my previous company, and towards the end she was making $250,000 a month some months. So at least if she had a bad month, it was $200,000. That's not bad, is it? But when you look at that, a lot of people, oh yeah, I want to get there, but they're not willing to do what it takes to get there. And frankly, most of us are not going to make it. But if you can take it incrementally, get your distributors. And this is a business of you getting what you want by helping others to get what they want. That's the way this works. So your ability to motivate people, to show them the way, to support them so they can become successful, this is the way you generate your income. And we're a marketing company, and so we have to be marketing all the time. The most important thing to do this, should be spending about, especially if you're new, you should be spending about 80% of your time recruiting and about 20% of your time training and developing your distributor force. And as your organization builds, I'm just doing these things to tell you how to keep them in mind. As your organization builds, then you decrease your recruiting time, but you never get away from it. So you might go 60-40, 50-50, then you go 40-60. And when you get down to where you're becoming quite a large leader, you should still spend about 20% of your time recruiting new distributors. Why? Because there's a natural turnover of people, and people become apathetic, and perhaps sometimes people don't realize what they have, and they're not in it long enough to know. So you have a turnover rate, and you have to replenish that all the time, and you need to be a role model, and you need to be in tune what has to be done to make it happen so you can help other people. Just because you have got knowledge from what was there, things are different than they were when I started in this business, and even halfway between then and now. I've been in this business for over 30 years, and there are a lot of changes in things in marketing and all of the technologies. So you need to evolve with it, and you'll get off track if you don't keep recruiting all the rest of your time. Now, the company is now growing quite rapidly, and we're into momentum. We're moving into really wild momentum. I think we're going to see that. And momentum will go through this year. We come back another year from now, if we did nothing but what we're doing, we're going to be over double the size we are. But that's, in many companies, that would be an impossible thing to think of. Here, it looks like that's a slam dunk for us. But how I would like to be 4 or 5 times bigger, that's possible, and maybe the next year, and maybe the next year, and maybe the next year with that kind of thing. We have the potential to do that if we will do what needs to be done. And so that's what we're trying to do from our end, is we're trying to give it to you so that you can take it, utilize it, understand it, and build your business and build your future. Now, I've been surprised, pleasantly surprised, because I'm seeing right now a number of leaders, and that's kind of the barometer. You have to do a lot of things. And you have things like volume, and you look at all indicators, how many people were recruited in, what was the retention rate, what's the average commission or the average size of each order and commission payouts and all those things. That's all part of management, and we do all of that, of course. But now I'm seeing that I make a decent I take a salary out of this company, and a good one because of lots of expenses and different things like that I have, and the lifestyle. And Tom Jr. makes a little more money than I do. Why? Because he's still growing, developing the thing in life, and of course he is the CEO, and I'm taking enough to make my life okay with what it is. A lot of people would love to have that kind of an income, but with mine, where I've developed in that's about what it takes to sustain it, a little plus, of course. But now what I'm seeing, the reason I tell you that is we're getting quite a number of people within the company in the different countries around, including the United States now. Their income is exceeding that Tom or I make for the company. Now, that might shock you a little bit, but Tom is dedicated as I am. He's been with me in this business for over 30 years, and together we have worked and built this thing. And so our mission is really to do everything within our power to help people to make their lives better. And so that's where our motivation is. Yes, he's still got family and things like the kids that he's helping to do with college and all of that type of thing. But so he has more demands, but still we're not after this big greedy grab like people at the top of the corporate structure are. We're not a public company. We could have gone public and had lots of investors. Then you have all the control, you have all the restraints, and everything you do is like big pharma or big medicine, and it's there to drive the dividends to the shareholders. Well, the dividends to the shareholders, if you want to look at it within this company, is you. You are like the shareholder. So what we want to do, since we don't have any investors in this, and we started this company with the money that I made when I sold the other one, see, so we didn't need investors. So we want to look at you like you are the investor in this company, and you're investing your time and your efforts and your skills and all of those things into this company. So therefore, we want to reward you like you were an independent contractor, but also the investor in this. Now, I know that's, I think it needs to be said because people don't necessarily realize that kind of company even exists, but it does. It does in Sisel. Now, there's maybe a few other around the world. In fact, as I do know of 1 or 2 others, but it is so extremely rare. It's something people don't even look at. But where the management of the company wants people's income to greatly exceed theirs is a wonderful thing. You don't find that. They're usually the first hog at the trough, eating up everything that they can, and then the big shareholders and board and all that kind of thing. Yeah, we have a board, Tom and I, and some of the Aaron and a few of the people that are here. But, we're not here to do things for us. We're here to do things for you, and that's the mission, the dedication that we have. So with that, what kind of a company do you want? Do you want a company that has the most revolutionary breakthrough products the world has never seen before and eliminates most of your competition? Or if there is competition in an area with a product that ours are so vastly superior, it makes theirs insignificant in comparison? You want that, don't you? Well, you've got that, and you've got that in spades here, like no other company that's ever, I believe, has ever existed before. There's perhaps some technological things that are done here and there and have happened throughout history, but here we are. And if you take a look at dietary supplements, we're doing what other companies don't even know exists. And they would dumb it down if they could. You know, oh, it's smoke and mirrors, all that flim-flam scam. Baloney, that's their company, not our company. We're doing this thing truthfully and genuinely and honestly so that you can put your confidence in us, so that your security is there, because the company is there to see that you become as successful as possible. That's our mission. Happier, healthier, and of course, much more prosperous or wealthier. And so that's what we're doing. Now, with that, you have a compensation plan, and they can be all over the place. Binaries are the curse of this industry. That's where the FTC is really starting to go after companies like this. And you saw where, like Herbalife got a $200 million fine, plus restrictions, which is just backbreaking to them. And now a number of other companies have had that happen too, because binaries are, they say, oh, you don't have to build one leg. Yeah, and you get almost nothing on it, so you have to build a second leg, and they pay you on your efforts in the second leg. On the first one, it would be big, and you could be placed in that leg so that what's in your down, they say, oh, I got a position for you. And that might sound so good. Here's your one big leg that's here, and now all you have to do is just build another leg to do it. And so it sounds easy, but it's very difficult because the mathematics really aren't there. If you take things like, and binaries are twos, and so if you have two legs, usually the one leg is half of life, and the first leg is, or less. So as you do growth, do it by 1.5. If you grow and you put people in, then you go to 3, and then you go to 4.5, and then 6, and so that's not tremendous growth. But here you can come through where we have the type of compensation plan that we have, in that you can put whoever you want in. You're smart in doing it, because you can craft and design your own program here, but it follows a certain template, and that is there is no limit to width, and you get paid proportionately on width to depth ratio. So the wider you build, the deeper you go. So it's a motivational thing for people to do it. And so let's say if you had 5 people on your first level and they duplicated, that's 20, that's 25. It's third level. I mean, and then the third level, so you go to 125, and the fourth level, 625. And where do you think you are when you hit that? And that's only 4 generations deep, and we pay many more than that. Well, you're sitting there, you're probably looking at $15,000, $20,000 a month coming in income. That's the potential that's there if you do the math on the volumes that are there. That's where, and go another level, 3,100 and 25, and then you go to that, and you go to 15,000, and then, gee, gads, where are you from there? You're into an organization that will make you mega wealthy. So I think you can see from what we're talking about that we have the vehicle to get you there. The plan is fair. It's easy to qualify. You can qualify at $50. Now, granted, you don't get as deep, but if $50 is all you can do, and you get a bunch of other people buying product for $50, pretty soon yours is real fast. It's free, but they won't just do that. Some of them will go on, some will fall off, some will go on, some will do much better, and I would much sooner have 10 people in my downline that were much better than me, wouldn't you? Or 100? Of course you would. And that's the way this works, so that you don't have to be top dog, but you can be if you find someone who is very good, or someone finds somebody in your downline that does it. And that's the beauty of this thing. So we've designed this compensation plan to be easy to qualify, very high percentages that are paid out, the BV to PV ratio with Almost every company has that. I say one of the big ones that's out there, and they're 50% BV on everything they sell. So if you sell a product, they say, well, look at our compensation plan. It pays 5% down all these levels. Yeah, on 50% BV, that's 2.5% a level, see? We have to BV some things because they are so enormously expensive, but most of them are not. And we do the very best we can with this to maximize, to keep the business running, but to maximize your effectiveness in it. So all that being said and done, that's the one aspect of it. So we have the compensation plan, and our real mission is to produce products and ship them and pay commissions with it. That's really the role of the company. Your role is to retail, recruit, and train and develop distributors. So the retailing is a little more difficult, but now with the new technology, we got some people on the internet making some pretty fantastic money by doing that. And so now retailing is much more feasible if you can learn how to do some internet marketing. So you still want to do retailing if you can, but internet marketing pushes it out there so wide that you can see what's happening. Look at the malls that are collapsing because of what Amazon has done alone, and a lot of other companies that have gone to internet marketing. So people do their shopping on their computer instead of going to the stores, and malls are shutting down all over the place. Well, you've got that vehicle that works for you in recruiting distributors and training distributors, and also in retailing products for this. So you need to be like me. I'm not very techy, but you've got to adapt to these changes that come, because if you do, then you can have great success, and that's what we're trying to make possible for you. So that's the one part. I spent quite a bit of time, more than I thought I would, on it. But the other part is the products that you sell. Yeah, do we have a hair shampoo and a toothpaste and a mouthwash and something to wash your clothes in and your dishes and things like that? Yeah, we have those kinds of things. What's the difference in those when you buy in the store? It's an enormous difference. And about all toothpastes are bad for you because of what's in them, and they can have tremendous effects on the eyes, development of the brain, the neurological system, heart attacks, all of those things related to the toothpaste, what's in the toothpaste that you're using. And quite frankly, I could tell you this, well over 95% of you are using the wrong one if you're not using ours. Ours is the right one. It does the right things. It doesn't do the wrong things. And that's a lot to be said for toothpaste. It's the same thing with hair shampoo. Can you imagine this? Your hair shampoo that you shampoo your hair with, if you're pregnant, will affect the sexual development of the fetus in the womb. It will demasculate the man, and it will exacerbate, or the male, and it will exacerbate the female. And so your child comes out abnormally developed one way or another, and the consequences, as you can see with changes in our society, are quite profound because of that. Look at the massive lawsuits going on right now over baby powder because it causes endometrial cancer. And the only reason it's got attention is there's massive amounts of money in it for the attorneys that are doing it. But 30 years ago or so, I announced to my distributor force that talc causes ovarian cancer and endometrial cancer with it, because it's very similar to the asbestos molecule, which is so dangerous, and yet it didn't get much fanfare. Now it is, because there's lots of money in it for attorneys. But my point about that is, see, our products, we don't have a baby powder, of course. I made one before, and we might get back to make it, but it's not exactly a target item. And when you're talking to people, the products that are so sensational, like toothpaste and hair shampoo and these kinds of things, they can be to the forefront if you want to talk about all the harmful ingredients in your house. To have a toxin-free house, get rid of those products. Take them where they should be, and that's not on the shelves. Put them in the garbage can and replace them with these safe, healthy products that we have. Now, there's a mission for you right there. And so that will motivate a lot of people. But other things are highly motivatable, and that is some of the things that we're coming into now. Now, I'm coming out to Ohio, and I'm going to introduce a new product, maybe two. When I'm out there, but one for sure, and it's really quite a tremendous product, and it will add to our magnificent line. But we've just introduced, of course, a few months ago, our CBD oil, and what that has been doing has been selling very well. And the reason it is selling well, of course, we've got a good distributor force that does believe in it, and they see the merits of CBD. But the one thing that is, it's the Achilles heel, but also it is our asset, and that is that most CBD oils on the market are not what they say they are. In fact, Fox News just did a big show on it, and where they went through and they got all of these oils, they had them all analyzed. And out of the numbers that they did, there were only 3 that met specification with them. And it was done on Dr. Oz's show, and he was coming out to talk about CBD, and after the experts came on and explained it to him what was there, he couldn't endorse it. Why can't you endorse it? The science is there, but the fraud is in the formulations that there. They've had, as they analyzed, Fox News did this and did the same thing on Dr. Oz. They analyzed formulations that had certain levels of CBD. Maybe it has 750, or most of these are a little lower. Some get up to 1,500, which is where we're at with it. But wherever it was, say they had a 750, which is very common for mLs of the CBD. But if you get to that point of where you had 750 and they did an analysis, they found there was 0 in some of those. It did not contain any. And then some of them they found contained, which they're not supposed to. THC is the active ingredient in marijuana. Now, the cannabis plant has got a lot of varieties. We use the hemp type. The marijuana is different, but there's a little crossover. There's a little bit of THC in hemp oil, but it's nowhere what it does. It needs you. It won't affect you. You should tell your employer if you're taking it. I'm on a hemp oil, and there's a slight amount of THC which may show up, but I'm just telling you ahead of time because it's a tremendous health product, and the one we have, we've got less than 0.2% of it in there, which is virtually insignificant. And so, and it actually, that little bit does help the CBD itself to become even more effective with it. But here was most of the formulations that they said they say things like full spectrum or broad spectrum. What's the difference? Well, full means everything, and broad means within a certain range. Then they have isolates. That means it's only one ingredient in it. So you see where the confusion comes? And then you have the flim-flam scam fraud just running rampant in this, to where over 80% of all the products are not what they say they are, and many of them have absolutely none in it. So we're facing that. So people, oh yeah, I tried CBD, it didn't work. Yeah, it didn't work because you weren't using CBD, you're using a product that was falsely labeled. But with ours, we have a little key code on it. Just take your phone on the side, click that, and it'll register right in. You can see an analysis that our product is 100% of what we say it does. And I don't think anyone else has that and does it. We do that. We're also fully licensed by the FDA, with the Department of Agriculture, with the state of Utah and their health department to manufacture this. And there aren't many that really are, and a lot of these are doing it illegally, but we've done it right. We've seen the vision of this. So our CBD is a powerful product. In fact, I didn't know when I first, I saw the interest in it, but I thought, yeah, I'm getting pretty well everything I want out of most of the other products, I think, and I don't know if I went a while without using it. Then I was really achy, and I took it one night because the stuff I did, holy cow, did I sleep well. And so then I started using it if I didn't feel like I was going to be able to get to sleep, or I had a long day, and sometimes you get achy and stressed and those kinds of things. I'd take some, I sleep good every night. Now most nights I don't want to go to bed without taking it before I do, because I wake so refreshed in the morning with doing it. But we've got the real stuff, and maybe that should be the theme. We've got the real stuff. and almost all of the others do not. No matter what they say, it's a lie, it's a fabrication, it's twisting the information that's there, it's distorting it, or it is totally non-existent. And that's all the things they found in the studies that not companies have been doing. I mean, like Fox News and Dr. Oz and others are doing this and finding it, but not with Sisel. We are 100% true blue, and you can count on our CBD. There's a new article that just came out that I just saw yesterday, and what it says is half of the users of CBD users were able to stop taking pharmaceuticals entirely. Now, that's a huge statement when you think about that, because of course, there's some things, you've got to take pharmaceuticals for. But here with CBD, most of the things they're taking pharmaceuticals, you got to understand most medicines are to treat symptoms, not to solve the problem. So here comes CBD working with your biology instead of artificially affecting it as prescription drugs do, and it works with your natural body, your biological functions, to create the reasons that had deteriorated. This is my theory. You got to remember one thing. My statements here today are not evaluated by the FDA, and they're my opinion, okay? So you need to take that with you. But you can say your opinion. So in my opinion, that's what I'm expressing here today. So if these conditions that required you to get a pharmaceutical drug in about half the cases are simply to treat the symptom, and the symptom no longer exists because you're using CBD, wow, isn't that something else? Because there are no side effects with CBD on this. That's one thing that's been shown. But if you have the full spectrum, as we do, in the high concentration, which we do, then you're going to get results. If you have a fraction, some of the actives, none of the actives, of course, look what you're looking at. And so it's not safe to buy CBD. I don't care how good their advertising is from almost all companies. There are some there, but there's less than 20% that are, even a lot less, maybe even 90% that are fraudulent in one way or another. And here we are, just we're loaded for bear, and this is the time to really get going with it because the publicity is so high. So how many people want to give up half of the pharmaceuticals they take? It's inconvenient going to the doctor. You have side effects from pharmaceuticals, and here, what's the effects you have? You feel better. You don't need pharmaceuticals. So that's pretty significant with CBD. Now, there's another thing that's big in the news, too, that I want to talk about. I'm just kind of recapping this, and this is the Roundup. And most of you have heard about Roundup and all the lawsuits and everything they're doing. And the World Health Association comes out and says it's a potential carcinogen or cancer-causing agent, and that's where there are huge fines or findings in court going on, and sometimes into the hundreds of millions of dollars for people that got cancer because they were using Roundup. I kind of disagree with some of that because you can't exactly prove what causes the cancer, but because they did it, these are jury trials, and they'll usually find excessive. In fact, this one company, they had a $2 billion or $3 billion judgment against them for one person. Now that's asinine, but that's why lawyers want to use juries, because they're sort of anti against the business people and pro towards somebody that was there. But $2 or $3 billion for someone that has cancer and still alive, but that's an amazing thing that's there. But yeah, it is. But I'll tell you where I think the bigger or the greater harm may be with Roundup, and that is, how many people do you talk about that are gluten intolerant? A lot of people. Oh, they got gluten in, I'm gluten intolerant. Actually, you're probably not, because of the people that say they're gluten intolerant have been tested, and now over 80% of them are not. What they are is they're sensitive to glyphosate, which is the active ingredient in Roundup. And so it's actually this glyphosate reaction that is misdiagnosed as gluten intolerant, and the medical establishment is doing it. Why? Because they don't know anything about this kind of stuff. They're natural things, and that they only know about pharmaceuticals. So you're gluten intolerant. Here's what we can do to help you with that kind of thing. No, you are not gluten intolerant. It's extremely rare. Less than 2 out of 100 people that say they are, that might even be on prescription drugs, actually are gluten intolerant. They're taking it for nothing. They're a vehicle, not a person, to make money for pharmaceutical companies and for big medicine, in my opinion, with that type of thing. So if now we start looking at it in the food chain, and because it's sprayed on the ground, it does two things that are bad. Number one, it kills a lot of the microorganisms in the ground that break down nutrients so they can be absorbed, and that's a bigger thing than you really realize. And then the second thing, of course, that goes in, and okay, let's talk about cancer, but let's just throw it off to the side for a bit. Let's say that's a given as a carcinogen, anyway, potential cancer causation. But how about autism? Now what the studies are showing that I have been seeing, and in my opinion, it's showing that the causes of autism, ADD, ADHD, is very likely, most likely, in some cases absolutely, caused by the glyphosate from Roundup. And what it does is it causes, there's a cause and effect, of course, with things like this. So if it's causing cancer, it's because it's oxidizing, like rust, and breaking the DNA down. But what happens with autism and the associated brain diseases like that, what happens is it stimulates the brain to build little nodules on the surface of it, and they actually interfere with the signals that are being carried throughout the brain. It's almost like a swelling that's expressed as something, but it grows up, and you have these permanent structures there that are interfering with the normal brain patterns going on. And I think this thing I'm telling you right now is very significant for all of you to know, because there's some things we can do about it that will support the bodies. And this is the key. Support is the most important word you have in your vocabulary if you're selling nutritional supplements, because you can't say it prevents or cures a disease, but you can say it supports the body or supports the processes that accomplish it. Or could, potentially. Those are all things. So you'll notice we use a lot of that terminology because we have to stay legal. And don't you think with a company like ours, Big Pharma would like to crush our head if they could do it? You bet. So we have to, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And here, when you're dealing with Big Pharma and big medicine, it's a ton of cure. So we do things right, try to train you to do this too, so you know how to do it. But anyway, now if that is the issue, then I think many of you have seen what I published here, where they found out that about all the breakfast cereals are contaminated with it. Have some Cheerios, have some Wheaties, have some Frosted Flakes, those different things that you're taking, and you know what you got? You've got and you're giving, who's eating most of the breakfast cereals? Children. And here their brains are developing, and they're in the most vulnerable time, and with that, they're affecting the development of the brain. But wait a minute, Mama, you were eating while you were carrying that baby, weren't you, while it was the fetus in the womb, and those things that you have that have glyphosate in them are being transferred to the fetus in the womb, affecting its brain so it doesn't develop properly, so the chances of autism is much greater, or ADD or ADHD or those associated problems. It's much different because of them. So what are you going to do about it? Go to the doctor? They got no answers for you on that kind of thing, in my opinion. Here's what you need to do. There's two things that are extremely effective against glyphosate, and that is, one is hydrogen water, or even if you breathe hydrogen, which some people do, it's more inconvenient, but hydrogen water is the most effective way of it, and it has a tremendous effect because It is perhaps the most powerful antioxidant that neutralizes oxidizers, which glyphosate is, I believe in the universe, in the world anyway, and it goes into every single cell in your body. It passes right into the blood-brain barrier. Nothing can stop it, and if it comes in contact with it, it has the potential to neutralize it. That's pretty good, isn't it? The second thing is, and you won't be as familiar with this, but if you've been with the company for a while, you will understand it, and that is organic fulvic acid. And fulvic acid is really how, and this is something that happens unfortunately in the soil, fulvic acid is produced by microbes in the soil, and it's a symbiotic relationship with the plants that are in the soil growing, because how does a plant eat a rock? I mean, you ask somebody that. Do you know how a plant eats a rock? Well, they do it the same way you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. And so these roots, you see how sticky they are? And when you pull them out and you feel the stickiness of the roots, it's because there's a sugar that those roots are secreting. That sugar is an energy source, and microbes feed on it. And when the microbes feed on it, just like they do sugar in your mouth, they secrete an acid. In this case, it's organic fulvic acid. That organic fulvic acid takes that big molecule that's a rock or a part of it, and it pulls the very smallest fractions off on it, ionic. So they're so small that they can be, as the plant starts drawing moisture up, they will go right through the root and carry the nutrients up to all the parts of the plant that's working. So there's a couple of things that are common here. Hydrogen, without hydrogen from the sun, there'd be no life on Earth. And so hydrogen is a very key important thing. Well, without organic fulvic acid in the soil, there would be no plant life. All plant life, has to have it to survive. So those two are absolutely vital for life. But now when they're spraying the grounds the way they do, and they use products like Roundup and other types of insecticides or herbicides, they kill the microbes in the soil. So when they kill the microbes in the soil, you don't get the kinds of nutrients absorbed up into the plant that you would, so they have to fertilize it. So now you have hollow foods. It grows fast but doesn't have the nutritional content in it. So what are you going to do? Well, we have the answer for you, we believe, the best answer. We can't say it entirely solves it, but that's why we have SpectraMax. It's based upon organic fulvic acid, and we have 74 essential trace minerals. The reason they're called essentials mean they're either in your food or they're not in your body, because they're essential and they can't be produced. They're either in the soil or they're not in the soil. And if they're depleted because of harvesting as it goes on, then there's less to be absorbed. So if you take organic fulvic acid, we have all 74 of the essential trace minerals that you need for your body. And also it has a lot of other super nutrients with it to give your body, it's sort of like a body toddy in a lot of ways, to bring it up to where it's supposed to be. So you can do that. And also the fulvic acid, then when it's in the body, it's really quite an amazing compound, because when Chernobyl, the big disaster, the nuclear disaster they had in the Ukraine happened, of course everything was contaminated, and a lot of Europe, in fact, reindeer herds way up in the north had to be utterly destroyed because they had so much radioactivity. But what the Russians did, and they got on this a long time ago, and they understood, because they were in the atomic age so much, they understood that radiation is so damaging because it has just to give you a basic on it, it has an unstable valence, and those are the electrons that are in the ring. Now, if one's satisfied, like H2O, that's water, it's stable. But if you split hydrogen off it, remember it's H2O, so if you split it, it's H1, it's unstable, it wants to bond, and it will bond with another hydrogen, becomes H2, now it's stable, see? Oxygen, it's split, it's O1, very unstable, it'll oxidize, but it'll pair with oxygen. Therefore, it's neutralized. This is the same principle that we're talking about here, because the radiation is so hungry for electrons, it just tears them loose from the structures within your body, and that's why the body just breaks down so quick, because this goes through and just destroys and ravages to satisfy that hunger it has for electrons, and that's how radiation kills you. It's also how they use it to kill cancer cells of certain types that can be somewhat controlled. But the point of it is, that kind of thing is happening. So Russians understood one thing: organic fulvic acid has an enormous amount of excessive electrons that it wants to exchange, wants to give up freely, wants to bond. And so they took organic fulvic acid and they went into Chernobyl and they sprayed everything. Grounds, the plants, the trees, the building, the equipment. They poured it down animals' throats. They bathed them in it. They sprayed people with it. People drank it all over, because it will exchange the electrons that the radiation is craving, and therefore it can be neutralized because of organic fulvic acid. That's quite a story, isn't it? And you got it right now in SpectraMax, and Body Shield is loaded with it. And that is actually the reason I developed Body Shield, is because I knew that, and I knew fulvic acid would neutralize radiation. So when they had the big nuclear accident there, the tsunami in Japan, here, 10 years ago or so, with that, and the nuclear power plants, Fukushima was going off and emitting all of those toxins. They had hot spots all over Japan where radiation was coming down. I made this product quickly because I was already using fulvic acid because it would absorb nutrients from the food that you eat. And so if you're taking SpectraMax, then you'll have better absorption of the nutrients that you need to. And it goes with essential trace minerals, which are only 3% absorbable by the body if they're not attached to an organic component, which is this organic fulvic acid. So it takes these essential trace minerals that are only about 3% usable, takes it to, depending on the type they are, between 91 and 97% usable. So that's why I had it, but I knew all about this. So when the catastrophe happened in Japan, I rolled out Body Shield, and it's still here today. So the beautiful thing about that, it's organic fulvic acid, which will neutralize the glyphosate from Roundup. In theory, has the potential to do that, and studies are actually showing, not our product, so we can't claim it for our product, but studies on the basic ingredient show organic fulvic acid shows it does just that. So you got the two, and then you have the power of the hydrogen molecule from the H2 stick. Those two are what you really ought to be taking. Now, yesterday I published in my time, I thought it'd be over in about 15, 20 minutes, but I'm kind of like DW. Sometimes when I get going, it's hard to shut me off. But yesterday I published on hydrogen. The study came out and says it'll keep you from losing your hearing, and just by putting drops in your ear. And of course, I've had some hearing loss. I shot a lot of guns in my life, and but anyway, with that, you have that concussion, and rock bands, they lose their hearing, all that because of all that. But his study shows that if you have damage to the ear, it has to do with the hairs that are in the ear, not the kind of hair that is hanging out of the ear, but the inner ear has hairs on it, and they pick up the vibrations from sound and translate it into our brain. And you lose those as you get older, and they get damaged because of severe shock and concussion, or just over the period of time they deteriorate in the age. So if you want to have good hearing, which one thing that I noticed when I started on the age pill, my hearing's improved a reasonable amount. And now I'm on the hydrogen, so I don't know what kind of effect, of course, that will have from ingesting it. I know what it does all through the body for so many other things, especially in the energy metabolism. It's now studies, this is the next new thing, studies have just come out showing it is enormous what we said we thought it would do from what we had seen. It has an enormous factor in creating metabolic energy, and that process is NAD, and NAD carries the hydrogen with it. That's what the plus is for, and it transfers it. And so then when it's done, it's exhausted, it's discarded, but if you got energy, our theory is, we believe, and researchers do, and what I'm seeing now from some, but it's still our opinion because as our product has been tested, but it recharges, attaches hydrogen back to the NAD molecule, and energy goes up, and it's like a merry-go-round. Instead of just running off the cliff, it just goes round and round and round and round. So if you're taking the H pill and the H2, you get that. But then they come through and they said, the eyes receive so much oxidative damage. Why? Because they're taking invisible light, UV light, infrared light, all of that, and the tissues are so sensitive and they get damaged over a lifetime. But the free radicals is what it is, oxidizers that damage the eyes, really do a lot of damage. So I took Vision, our product, and I fortified it with the things that can fight that like nothing else that I have ever seen that's been created. I've seen some individual components of this, but not a collective group of them in the strength of what we put, so we've got that. But then it comes out with hydrogen water that if you put drops in the eyes, it has such a powerful effect against what they call the super oxide or oxidizer that creates oxidative stress. And so, and that's a big issue with your eyes. So you put drops in it, it neutralizes it, it charges it, it protects it. Now, I can't say our product does, but hydrogen does. And so our product provides hydrogen. So this is where DSHEA, the Dietary Supplemental Health Education Act, says you can say it supports the eye for this, and it supports the ear for this. And what they're finding with the ear is the hydrogen is going in, and it's taking care of that oxidative shock, that stress. But the other thing that was so interesting and stuff for me was the fact that they found that when your hearing goes down, one of the other things that happen, and this, some of it might be due to natural aging, is that as the hearing goes down, the blood vessels, the capillaries, start drying up. They start constricting. And so as a result, you're not getting enough oxygen to it. And so here they have the hydrogen that goes in, and it helps, it supports the system. Here's the way to say it. Supports the system so the blood vessels will expand and carry more oxygen and bring it in to theoretically protect the damage that's destroying the ears. And what it will do to restore it, I don't know, and they don't either, but you can bet your biffy they're working on it, and I'm following that too. But to me, if we can prevent it, then if you have something going like the age pill that takes stem cells that are getting exhausted because of age and the tremendous metabolic oxidation that they're subject to, and suddenly you can support them so they have the self-regenerating properties in it that the ingredients will support, and you can take the stem cells that are doing very little in the ear and suddenly it can do a lot. Now you've got a combination. 1 and 1 doesn't have to be 2. It can be 100. And that's the thing that I try and put together in my mind so that you can understand it and see what it does. So taking the age pill, and now when I take hydrogen, guess what I do? I do a bunch of things with it, because what it shows now is that it diminishes wrinkles. It knocks down the compounds that are really causing wrinkle repression, or it represses those that are causing wrinkling, and that's a type of UVA. And by putting hydrogen in, it shows that now this is hydrogen. I'm not talking about drinking it. I'm talking about splashing it on your face. I'm talking about bathing in it in a tub. I'm talking about putting it through a mister onto your skin. And warm water with hydrogen goes a long ways for skin, and it supports a tremendous increase in collagen regeneration and keratin regeneration, and neutralizing the very thing that causes wrinkles, and that is UVA. It's not UV, it's not UVB, that's what burns you. UVA causes wrinkles, and the hydrogen molecule or atom is extremely powerful to neutralize that. So you can see all the things that we have going, and I had a list of things I wanted to talk about. I'm only about halfway down the list, so I'll have to come on another time because we're out of time. But I will tell you the discoveries that we're doing, the things that we have out are stunning. There's some new discoveries in science on cancer and what they're doing. They've been doing it in hospitals, so they tailor your immune system, which gets exhausted and old. That's why one of the reasons you get cancer when you get old. Your immune system can't keep up with it, and it's disoriented, can't identify cancer, et cetera, et cetera. They can take that and they can change. They take the T cells, the cancer cells, and they take some of the DNA from a cancer cell and impregnate it into the T cells, pump it back into the blood system, and they hunt that cancer down and kill it no matter where it's gone. And even if it's metastasized throughout the whole body. Now, that's a major breakthrough, but it is horribly expensive. But now what they've done is they've come up with a system where they're going to be able to give people injections that will do the same kind of thing, but just by an injection that triggers that within the immune system, the macrophages, the T cells, to regenerate, to identify themselves so they can become more active. Well, that sounds pretty good. I'm sure that's just coming out. That's not here yet, but it's being tested. And whenever they get done with that, because it takes about 15 years to get a new drug approval through, maybe this is far enough. I don't know when it'll be out, but I can tell you one thing. It'll still be rotten expensive. But how about if you could do that every single day within your body just by taking dietary supplements that are doing a lot of other things for you? That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? And I think we have the combination that will support your body's natural processes that are there, that the injection is also doing, but we can address it with oral nutrition. And we have something like the H-pill and fucoidan on top of that, and Avenger to a lesser degree with that model, but fucoidan especially, man, you've got magic. You've really got things going. Then you're throwing some hydrogen with it. What have you got? You just powerhouse, a cocktail of enormous power going in your body. Now, those are just some of the things that I was going to talk to you about today, and I'll come back another time and talk about it because there's others. The other thing is, I wanted to announce one thing so you'll be aware of it. I'm going to do a test market trial because I need before and after photos and a number of things like that, and I need to make sure the formulation is modified, and I'm going to do it in Australia, to start in Australia. Australia gets a lot of sun, and they have probably the worst skin conditions there because of sun, UV light, all of those types of things. So I'm going to bring out a product. I don't know what to call it yet. I am trying to figure out a name, but what it will be, it'll be a skin product. It won't be like a lotion, it'll be like a serum, and you'll have an applicator, and you just apply it to anywhere where you've got flaws in the skin that you don't want, such as a wrinkle, such as bags under the eyes, crow's feet, crepe skin, all of that. You just apply that. And then you put something like transfusion over, which is having some more major advancements being done in. But this serum will catch this, if you think this isn't artsy-fartsy, but this serum, you have, when you get damage to the skin, it turns on an aging switch. And that aging switch causes the skin to start to contract in, and you get the crepe skin folds, wrinkles, folds in to protect the damaged areas from the environment, see? So that switch is now on. Now, that's how Botox works, is it comes in there, and it's a poison, of course, comes from botulism. They dilute it down so that it's bad for the skin, too, but it numbs the skin so that switch cannot be activated and the skin will relax. But also it affects negatively the metabolic activity of the of the skin itself, so long-term use of Botox is a horrible thing to do. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to flip the switch that's on for aging. We're going to turn it off. So we're going to turn off the aging switch. I support the turning off of the aging switch because the mechanisms are there to do it, and it simply needs these types of nutrients to do it. The skin can do it, and we found what we think are the answers with a combination of things. So it's not going to be just as simple as like a Botox. And I mean, it falls down, and you flip it, you switch it off, and it unfolds. Yes, we believe you're going to have that, but it's going to do a lot more than that. And we want to do some other things that cause super regeneration of the skin. So I'm going to test that here in Australia for a month or two to get some, and then when we get the formula perfected, because there's so many things, you look at your irregular face, how many things you want to touch on. I got to make sure I get them all. And there's things like fat and breaking down discoloration. All of those I want to add into it, so it's just not doing one. It's not just doing a Botox type effect. It's doing something that's really significant and meaningful. So you'll be seeing that coming out pretty quick. Now I'm way over. And I'll be back on another time. I'm going to talk to you about some of these products. Doesn't this take your breath away, the products we've got and what we're doing? I'm going to bring out some things. We got the age pill that it's just knocking the dog out of death and extending lifespan and regenerating. And they just found a new enzyme that works within the system in the stem cell. I got to tell you this. I don't want to because of time, but I'll just tell you real quick. This new enzyme, they found out, wow, this really makes NAD work even better. And through the process of doing, they're figuring out how they did it. And guess what? I've already got the components in the age pill because I saw this enzyme was a part of the system. They just didn't know what it did. And I thought, if that's part of how a stem cell works, even though scientists don't know what this enzyme does, I don't know it, but it's there. It's part of the natural process. So I put the ingredients in to support the production of that enzyme within the cell, and now the studies just come out. This is what it does, and it makes NAD+ much more effective, and anti-aging much more effective, immune regeneration much more effective. And guess what, folks? We've had it in ours for, a year, maybe not quite a year or so, but it's there. Because I knew that was part of the mechanism. I didn't know what it did, but I thought it was best to be there, and now it's proven to be true. So I've gone, wow, way over, 5 minutes over an hour. I thought I'd get by in 15, 20 minutes, but I'm like DW. I get pontificating too much sometimes. But anyway, I'll shut that off and give you those things, food for thought. But if you really think about those, how could you use other products? 100% of all the products the FDA tested here 2 years ago for dietary supplements, there wasn't a single one that had enough of the active ingredient in it to be considered a therapeutic dose. How is that for an indictment of the industry? Our company is just the opposite. Everything is done to the maximum dosage we think gives the very maximum results, and that's the way we build our products. So here we are. We're that shining tower standing up above all others, and our light is pretty bright. You just have to get people to see the light, to become part of this, to change their life, to take back their lives, and create the kind of health, wealth, and happiness that they deserve. Back to you, DW.
Tom Mower, absolutely phenomenal. Putting everybody in a situation where they can get their products paid for, bringing products to the field that can make an impact. So, Tom, if I understand it correctly, big pharma product, and all of a sudden someone goes, "Oh, I got a brand new drug that they just brought out," and it's 15-year-old research versus what you're doing, which is 15-day-old research. I mean, there's a difference between night and day. Matter of fact, you're ahead of the research, Tom.
Yeah, we research the research, and that's the thing we say. We're researching the research to create products that are highly advanced, ahead of their time. If you find a discovery, in fact, you got to remember about 50% of all pharmaceutical products are first discovered in nature, and then because they can't patent a natural ingredient because it's God-given according to the law, they have to make a synthetic version now. So they have to test the natural to see it works. Then they have to work on getting a synthetic that will elicit the same response even though it has a side effect. And once they get that done, they get that tested, then they start a new drug approval, which takes about 15 years. And so when you're looking at these products coming out, you're probably looking at 20-year-old technology that's come out in drugs. And because it's so expensive to do it, because the way the FDA and Big Pharma wants it to eliminate nutritional supplements from being able to be said what they do, they have that system so that it comes out, but they don't want to lose customers, so they design them to treat symptoms rather than provide the cure. That's it in a nutshell.
Everybody, there you have it right there, live.